All right, guys, we're going to take a look at the Mido Ocean Star with a caliber 80 movement in it, which is based off from the ETA, I think they call it a C07.621, which is like a new iteration of the ETA 2836. So it has the date, but it has the longer power reserve, and I believe it has a slower tick rate and everything. So similar to how Hamilton did it or whatever, they've done a bunch of wizardry in the movement. I'm not going to get into that. There's all kinds of research you can dig into if you want to take a look at that. But I believe this is my first look at a Mido. Is it Mido or Mido? I think it's Mido. Scott, a viewer of the channel, sent in, this is his personal watch. And I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with it. It has definitely its own flavor, or its own style. Case size, you're looking at 42.5 millimeter. Lug to lug is 48.8. You can see really nice brushing there. Almost to the point where it's slightly polished brushing. It's kind of unique, and then definitely polished out reliefs there. This one's been worn. It's got a couple little nicks and bangs and stuff. It's really thin too. It's only 11.5 millimeter. Signed crown, sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, and that crystal disappears. I'm almost suspicious of anti-reflective coating on both sides, maybe. 22 millimeter lug width. Bracelet tapers down to 20 mil. You can get the bracelet to fold flat on, even though that center solid end link does not articulate, but you still have plenty of articulation on there to get that to lay flat. One thing I did notice on this really nice looking case back is it is not a screw down case back, rather a screwed down case back, but yet it still has a 200 meter water resist, but a very nice looking case back and very smooth on the wrist. There's no sharp edges, there is no really sharp edges on the bracelet, with the exception of some of the clasp bits of the milled clasp part do have a little bit of sharp angles here and there, but nothing to upset home about. Speaking of the clasp, a lot of micro brands I've noticed have used a clasp similar to this, but this is such a better version of that. So hopefully the micro brands at some point will update their clasp to this, because usually they're so thick and bulky to have that bit right there. And Mido here has proven that you don't have to be thick and bulky to do the same thing. I mean, that's a pretty thin clasp compared to, I don't have one here, but you guys know what I'm talking about. A lot of the micro brands will use, and they're like way thicker than that. But you can see the case profile here, fairly flat planed. It does curve a little bit on the lugs, with that lug to lug being 48.8 and then that center link being solid, it's going to be a little bit longer, probably closer to 50, 51. Let's take a look at the dial though. 60 click bezel, pretty good. There's a little bit of play in it, but it sounds good. It's solid, and it works great. I like the handset. I really like the dial there. It's almost like a shiny denim like pattern. You can see it's not like a starburst from the center, but it has a similar texture, but it's in a line from north to south there, basically. Nice date cutout, applied indices, Swiss made. I'm a big fan of that handset too. A little bit of skeletonizing towards the center with a nice lume on the outside there. We'll do a lume shot at the end, but you can see they're pretty good looking dial. There's not a whole lot going on there, and sometimes less is more type scenario. Let the watch just do its thing. But you can see it's got some nicks and bangs here. Screw down crown, of course. All right, let's try this sucker on. You can see it on my 7 1/4 wrist. It's going to have a little more presence because I think you have a larger dial. Even though it's only a 42.5 millimeter watch, I think your bezel is actually a little bit narrower and your dial is bigger, so it has a little more presence. But it feels great, wears great on wrist. Great bracelet with the polished reliefs everywhere. I'm not sure. No, it's definitely a really good looking bracelet. So here it is. I'm going to show you some these aren't competitive options, but size-wise, so you can understand what I'm saying about the presence of it, you can see next to an SKX, it's definitely going to be a little more demanding on wrist. Even though, you know, 42 mil, 42 and a half mil, it's just so crazy how you get different watches and the way they're aesthetically designed. They're just going to have such a different look to them on wrist. But I think a part of it wearing great is that 11.5 millimeter thinness. You can see that makes a huge difference right there. So those numbers all mean things, and when you mix them up, you're going to get a totally different feel and look on wrist. So, all right, let me give you a Lume shot, guys, and then we'll close out on this. Big thanks to Scott for lending this in. Looks like, I'm not sure if that might be BGW9. I'm not sure if it is or Super Luminova, but it's plenty bright enough, and it looks like it's not fading anytime fast. So I think it's got a decent application of Lume. You know, compared to Seiko, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more dim, but we all pretty much know that's going to happen. But it's definitely better than some of the other watches in this price category, I think, in the Swiss lineup, such as like Hamilton or maybe even, I can't remember if Certina was doing okay. Maybe online with Certina's. So decent Lume. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next vid.